Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Storytime with me, Rob. I want to say thank you to everybody who's reached out and said they want another episode. It's been, several months since the last one, so mostly just because I'm busy and, mostly lazy, so I'm glad I'm getting back into it. So thank you guys for listening, if you are in fact listening. I don't know where I'm going to go with this one, so I think I'm just going to wing it, so hopefully you guys enjoy. Pizza Hut has been one of the best and worst jobs I've ever had. I'll start with the reasons why it's been good before jumping right into the bad stuff. It's going to make explaining what happened to me last night a lot easier if you know a little backstory. For a business that constantly reminds me how cheap it is, it pays me well enough as an assistant manager. The work is typically repetitive and simple, and my days there usually melt together as it's more or less the same routine every day. Deal with customers, make the pizzas, and the wings. Call the Pepsi company and complain our order is late for the third time in a row. There's the odd time when things get tense. We get angry, complaining customers every few days, but every workplace that deals with customer service gets those. Thankfully, it never usually takes more than a free pizza or a credit on their next order to make them happy again. For the past 11 months, I have been the restaurant's main closer. My shift never changes from 4 to 11 or 4 to 12 on Fridays and Saturdays. Once in a while, I'll get scheduled for a 10 to 6 or an 11 to 7 shift if one of our openers is sick, but that's pretty rare. However, it does happen. Since I live in such a small town, my Pizza Hut only deals with takeout and delivery orders. There's no dine-in area at all except for a couple bar tables and stools by the main entrance for people to wait for their orders. The front lobby of the restaurant is tiny, and the kitchen is no exception. The entire back area is pretty much one big room, with a little area behind a wall in the back that doubles as a prep area and office. There's no break room or employee bathroom. We do have one bathroom at the front for customers, right next to the pop cooler by the entrance to the kitchen. And now that you know a little about the restaurant looks and how it runs, I'll move on to why it isn't a good place to work at the best of times. First off, I'm one of only 5 people that work there. My boss and 2 of my other employees are contract workers from India, so English isn't their first language. They never talk in English when it's just me and them, so I'm always a little out of the loop. My other coworker works only part-time since she's still in high school. So with her there only a few hours a week, I spend a majority of my time working without talking too much to my other coworkers, and it can get pretty lonely. Now, a little about me. I just turned 20, I'm a smaller female, and I live about 10 minutes away from work. That's 10 minutes walking one way. I don't have my license or a car. This typically doesn't bother me, but it does get kind of scary when I'm walking home in the dark after midnight. Thankfully, the walk to my house is in a pretty good part of town. I've yet run into any real issues. Other than the language barrier between me and most of my coworkers, the only real problem comes from the night shifts. Since one person is fully capable of doing all the closing duties, I am left there by myself from 8 p.m. onwards. This means that I have to answer the phones, help the customers, and make all the orders. It's not usually busy, so I never have a problem with that, unless there's an odd time where I get 4 or 5 orders at once. But I'm really fast at making pizzas. I can usually get them made and in the oven within a minute and a half of the order being taken. The real problem is being alone on closing shifts explains it within this very sentence. I'm there all alone. It can be kind of spooky sometimes if there's someone weird that comes in. Anyone could rob me or hurt me, and there would be no one there to help. I've talked to my boss about my concerns, but he always dismisses me, saying, "I'm a phone call away if you need help. We should not have to pay a second person to do your job." Jerk. Last night, I worked my usual close. Since it was Saturday, I only had to stay until 11, but it felt like I was there for hours more. Last night, my fears of what would happen when I was alone came true. My shift went normally for half the day. By the time 8 o'clock rolled around, I had said goodbye to my morning crew and had already started on the closing checklist. Weird stuff started happening around 9:30. I was making the dough in the back, taking my time with it since there was not much else to do. I heard the beep beep of the doorbell, and I automatically spun around, looking up at the TV displaying real-time footage of the front lobby. I stared at it for a few seconds, confused. The front was empty, and I could not see anyone out the window to the outside. Convinced I had imagined it, I carried on with my dough. I greased and oiled 5 more pans, finishing the stack. I stacked them on top of each other and picked them up, turning around to check the camera again before I carried the dough into the walk-in cooler. My heart leaped painfully in my chest as I fumbled with the stack, nearly dropping them all on the floor. A man was standing in the lobby, peering into the kitchen. At once, I set the pans down, wiping my hands on my apron before I ran out to greet him. He had shocked me, but I got over it quickly. I figured he must have been standing in a blind spot the last time I checked the camera, the spot where I used to hide when taking extra breaks so my boss couldn't see what I was doing. "Hi there," I called out as I walked over quickly. "Sorry about that, I didn't see you come in. What would you like to order?" "I didn't see you come in." The man repeated my words. "I didn't see you come in." I stood still for a second, not knowing what to say. I was getting a really bad vibe from this guy, and as he spoke, it got worse. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself with little success that I was being silly. The man looked average enough, despite being very dirty. He was very tall and looked older than my dad, but he was dressed strangely. He was wearing a shiny, light blue dress shirt tucked into gray-stained sweatpants. His sweatpants were tucked into his socks. His hair was greasy and combed to the side. His pockets were stuffed with what appeared to be all the mints that I had in the jar near the menus. He smelled like he hadn't showered in weeks. "Can I take your order?" I asked again, but my voice lacked questioning. It sounded more like a timid statement, and I wondered what this guy's problem was. It took a long time, but finally he ordered a small pepperoni pizza with 8 boneless wings. I rang his order in quickly, happy he had finally said something. I couldn't help but notice the way his mouth moved when he talked. It went just straight up and down like a doll's. He didn't have any teeth, and his breath nearly made me gag. "I'll have your order ready in 10 minutes, I said, placing his change on the table. I thanked him again and walked into the kitchen, wishing there was a door there instead of an empty frame leading into the kitchen. I didn't want him to get curious and look in again. I went to the walk-in and grabbed a small pan to make his pizza. Before I got started on it, I checked the camera again, feeling a little better when I saw the man sitting at the bar table reading what looked like a menu from the front counter. Convinced he was just not all there and most likely homeless, I just ignored my gut feeling that something was wrong and prepared his order. I had the pizza in the oven in under 30 seconds. I dropped his wings in a basket and set the timer on the fryer, 6 minutes to kill before they're ready. I took this as an opportunity to check my phone. I picked up just in time, as I was receiving a call from my friend Lana. "Hey," I said into the phone. "You called me just as I'm taking a few minutes break. What's up?"
"Hurry up and be done with work,"
Lana cried, sounding irritated.
"I'm so bored."
"1 more hour," I said after glancing at the clock. 10 p.m. I was startled by this. It felt like I had just looked at the clock. Half an hour had gone by since the man had come in. "Lana, you should walk over and pick me up," I said in a low voice. There's this weirdo here and he's giving me the creeps.
Are you alone again?
Lana asked, sounding concerned. Yeah, I mumbled into the phone. I tried to talk to my boss about it again, but he never does anything. Anyways, I'll see you in a bit. I hung up the phone just as the fryer timer started to beep. The wings were done. I threw my phone in a bag and walked around the corner to the main part of the kitchen. I sauced the wings and cut the pizza, carrying the order to the front while looking forward to see the man leave. I looked around and felt my knees grow weak again. The front was empty. The stool the man had been sitting on was jutted out. The menu he was reading was on the ground. This completely freaked me out. I hadn't heard the doorbell, so he couldn't have left. My eyes drifted over to the bathroom door. The handles button was horizontal, meaning that it was locked from the inside. This made me feel a little better. He was just in the bathroom. There's nothing wrong with that. I stood at the till, aimlessly looking through stuff as I waited for him to come out so I could give him his order. I looked down at the bottom of the screen at the time. 10:15. 10:21. 10:34. He'd been in there for a good half hour before I mustered the courage to knock on the door. "Everything all right in there?" I called out. At once, I could hear shuffling, as if I had startled him. I backed up, preparing for him to come out. The shuffling then stopped, but he still didn't open the door. I walked closer again, raising my fist to bang on the door again when I heard a click. The door had unlocked. 10:40 p.m. I was at a loss for what to do. I had grown very paranoid and now I knew something was wrong, but at the same time I couldn't just stand there and wait for something to happen. It was 20 minutes to close and I still had a few things to do. I braced myself to open the door and deal with it when I heard him whispering, "One more hour. One more hour. Lana." I jumped back like I had been burned. He was recycling my words again from earlier when I was on the phone, but I was in the back of the kitchen behind the wall. There's no way he could have heard me, unless he had crept back there and listened in. I backed away from the door and grabbed the phone, dialing my boss's number. My hand shook as I struggled to press the buttons. Bright lights suddenly distracted me and I looked up to see a car pulling into the parking lot. I thanked my lucky stars as two people got out and walked towards the restaurant holding hands. However, seconds before they could open the door, the bathroom door creaked open. My heart pounded as I looked over, not sure what I should prepare myself to see. The man looked the same as before, except covered in sweat, and he was panting like a dog. His hair was sticking up everywhere like he was pulling on it. Beep, beep. The couple walked in, looking curiously at the giant menu a few feet over my head. As I turned to look at them, the man suddenly leapt forward, making me scream and jump back. But he didn't touch me. He grabbed his order sitting on the counter and then bolted out. And I mean bolted. He ran like someone was trying to kill him, across the highway and into the neighborhood beyond. The relief I felt when he was finally gone was unexplainable. I was nearly laughing when I took the customer's order, so dizzy I could hardly keep it together. I rang in what they wanted and raced to the back to prepare my last order of the night. 10:52 p.m. With the customers in the front, I felt comfortable enough to look out the window to make sure the man had not returned. It was dark, but I could see enough. And after a good few minutes of checking things out, I decided it was okay to say that he was gone for good. I was also starting to wonder where Lana was and hoped she hadn't ran into the creep. 10:57 p.m. I brought out the customer's order and they thanked me, leaving me no tip, but I wasn't expecting one after they saw me scream as the man grabbed his order. As soon as they drove away, I turned off the open sign and raced to the back to grab my things. I put my jacket on and went to the back area to turn off the computer system, realizing that I forgot to check the bathroom to make sure the man hadn't done anything weird in there. I dismissed the thought. I wasn't going to spend any more time here than I absolutely needed. I've had enough for the day. The computer made a few beeping sounds as the entire system shut down, and the lights above me went out like they were supposed to. The only thing on now was the security camera, and I glanced up at it hoping to see Lana walking over. Something bothered me about what I saw. The front was empty and dark, but I could still see the shapes and shadows of things. There was no one inside but me. I used the master switchboard next to the computer to turn on the front light, and I nearly had a heart attack. The man was standing outside the door, not moving and staring in through the glass. It's hard for me to remember everything that happened next. All I can recall is running into the walk-in cooler and locking myself in as I called the police from my cell phone. I remember crying as I tried to recall to them exactly what had happened. They drove me home and promised to keep a lookout for him, but that didn't make me feel much better. I felt like they didn't entirely believe me, but I was sort of expecting that. I went to work early the next morning, still terribly paranoid even though it was in the middle of the day with a lot of people around. I was going to tell my boss that I couldn't work the nights anymore, starting now. There's no way that I'd put myself through that again. I opened the door and my coworker gave me a grim look, looking not all that pleased as he motioned for me to look over at the bathroom door. It was covered in caution tape with a giant sign that read, "Out of order." I asked everyone I worked with what happened in there, but no one gave me a straight answer. I'll never know how to fully explain what happened last night. I feel somewhat safe knowing I won't have to work alone ever again, but one thing has been bothering me since it happened. Lana walked here to pick me up, and that man was outside. I've been calling her all day. Each time, it goes to voicemail. Update. Hi everyone, I've been reading all your comments and I've been answering them the best that I can. Now I'm going to give the answers to the two main questions. What happened in the bathroom, and what happened to Lana? I was hoping to get a concrete answer about what was found in the bathroom before I update, but it's growing apparent that it may be a while before someone tells me exactly what all was discovered, if they even tell me at all. I got the most information out of my boss, who talked to me for a long time today about the other night's events. He ended up looking over the security footage from when the man was in the restaurant and went over with me what he saw. He told me he watched the man sneak into the back when I was on the phone, getting very close to me. He said if I had done so much as to turn around, that I would have saw him. I was told there had been a paper towel stuffed into the toilet. The entire roll, by the sounds of it. The cardboard cylinder was found stepped on the floor. I didn't see anything too strange about this and asked why everyone was being so quiet about it. I was told afterwards that there had been blood covering the paper towels. There was a smeared bloody handprint on the toilet seat. I don't know what to make of this. I don't understand where the blood came from. There's another factor that's being left out of everyone's explanation, and I'm hoping that once this settles over, people will give me the last piece to the story. I have a feeling that they aren't telling me for my own good. Blood and wet towels everywhere is disturbing enough. Lana finally made contact with me. It's not the kind of contact I was hoping for, but at least it's something for now. I got a text from her a little over a half hour ago. It read,
Sorry, 9. I missed your call.
I don't like that text. It doesn't sound like her. Lana's the type of girl that uses exclamation points in every message and always uses proper grammar and capitalization. That aside, I just think it's a weird thing to say. I called her tons of times, not just one call. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I'm getting so paranoid I can't help it. I'm walking to her house after I post this. I really hope it's just paranoia making me so worried. My name is Peter Tillman, and I'm terrified. I am a physicist here in Toronto and teach at one of the best universities in Canada. I've had a very successful career and I've been offered tenure, which I'm still debating. I was very lucky to be born into a very wealthy family and met the man of my dreams about 8 years ago in my early 20s. We've been married for approximately 5 years and he's my everything. He makes me laugh, he makes me smile, he sometimes makes me cry. Who doesn't have that story to tell about their partner? And he's my partner in crime. The man that came home to me yesterday is not my husband, and I have no idea what's going on. Christopher, my husband, left for a business trip 5 days ago. He's a patent lawyer and occasionally has to travel for work. He left Pearson International Airport and called me when he landed at Wijnvlughaven, Vienna's main airport. I have a bit of separation anxiety when it comes to being away from him, and he has no problem catering to this. He called me after he got through customs and when he got to the hotel. Nothing long, just a, "Hey honey, I'm here" kind of call. We always preferred phone calls since we text with everyone else and decided that calling would be our thing. I went about the last 4 days as I usually would, doing chores, teaching the couple summer courses I had been unfortunately assigned, and picking out new colors for the kitchen. His mom was footing the bill for the renovation, so why not? It's her anniversary present to us. Yesterday, Christopher was scheduled to fly back to Toronto. He called me from Vienna after he got into the lounge at the airport and told me that he was super tired and was going to pass out on the plane. I was happy that he was finally going to get some rest after what sounded like an atrociously busy trip. Poor guy, he works so hard. His flight was scheduled to arrive at 11 p.m., and I had an early class to teach today, so I decided to make dinner and leave it in the fridge for him, and then curl up with the poorly written physics book that I was editing for a friend. I realized that 11 p.m. had come and gone and I didn't get a word from Christopher, but I just assumed that his flight was delayed. He had a layover in London at Heathrow Airport, and I know that they have some pretty brilliant thunderstorms this time of year, so I just figured his flight was delayed. When 12 p.m. rolled around, I started to get a bit more worried, but then all my feelings were allayed. I got a text. I know that Christopher was tired, and that he usually doesn't sleep well on flights, so I assumed that he just wanted to reassure me that's why he texted instead of calling. He said, "Juist landad. Will be ham soon." Poor guy was so tired he couldn't even type straight. I even got him a new iPhone for his birthday and assumed that he was still having trouble adapting to the touchscreen, having been a loyal BlackBerry fan for so many years. I went to the bathroom, took out my contacts, and I fell asleep. I don't know how long after receiving that text I fell asleep, but I was out cold. A few hours later, I heard the latch turn, and I heard Chris's usually heavy footsteps climb the stairs. He went to the bathroom and did his usual routine, except he left the water running. I thought that was a bit strange. He's usually very particular about turning off the taps as to not waste water. Not because of the bills, but because of the whole environmentalism kick that he'd been on for the past couple of years. I was drifting in and out of sleep, but I wanted to see him before I fully passed out. He came into the room and something seemed different. Nothing that scared me, but just seemed off. I have terrible vision and my glasses were not near the bed since I normally wore contacts. I looked over and his upper lip looked swollen, like if he'd been stung by a bee, and I could see a lot more gum and teeth than normal, and he had a very broad smile, like he missed me and was glad to see me. I asked him, "Babe, are you okay? What's up with your lip?" He quickly told me not to worry and that it was just chapped from being on the plane. I agreed and, still half asleep, drifted off again. About 2 hours later, I rolled over and noticed that Chris's back was towards me. Whatever, nothing strange. That's when I put my arm around him. He felt thicker. That's the only way to describe it. I know what my man feels like, and he just felt like a thicker, broader version of him. My general level of unease was starting to get stronger at this point, but not being fully awake, I just chalked it up as nothing. This morning I woke up and Christopher was gone. His suitcase was still there. He had changed his clothes, but he was gone. I called him and no answer. He, however, quickly texted me back the following. At the gym. Loft early. Will be home after you leave. Good, I thought. Maybe he could work off some of that extra weight I felt on him last night, and chuckled to myself. I went about my regular routine and was just about to step out the door when I saw his suitcase again. He'd left it on the landing by the door, and I guess he just wanted it there so he could sort it in the living room. As I was leaving, a faint, musty smell hit me. It was like if someone had left a steak out in the sun for a couple hours. I was already halfway out the door, so I felt like it was coming from the outside, but when I turned my face towards his suitcase, it got so much worse. The smell wasn't a steak being left out for a couple hours, but a couple days. It reeked. I picked up the suitcase only to realize that he had left a lock on it, and I didn't have the keys, so I moved it into the garage just so that it was out of the house. As I was about to get into the car, I got another text from Christopher. I love you. See you soon. I texted back, when you get home, check your suitcase. It stinks and the handle has some kind of residue on it. I still found it strange that he would text. And about 10 minutes after I got into the car, my phone rang. Chris was calling me. Hello? Chris. Hey babe, so sorry I didn't get a chance to call you. You must be crazy worried. Me. Why? Are you okay? Chris. Yeah, I've been stuck here in London. Just getting onto my plane to come home. Can you come meet me at the airport? I froze. I nearly dropped the phone and almost ran my car off the road. Me. What? What do you mean you're still in London? Is this a joke? That's not funny, Christopher. You came home last night. I saw you. I spoke to you. Yes, I'm a heavy sleeper, but don't shit around. What's going on? Chris. Listen. He put his phone on speaker, and I could hear a woman in thick English accent announcing, and gentlemen, this is the final boarding call for flight BA203 to Toronto. Could Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Coleridge please come to the British Airways desk on the main concourse? I stopped the car. I was dead silent. What's going on? Who did I sleep next to? Me. Christopher, get home. I'm scared. I need to see you. Call me when you're at the airport. Everything is okay. I just need to see you. Christopher. Oh, okay, babe, calm down. I'll be home soon. I should be there by 9 p.m. He chuckled because he figured my anxiety was getting the better of me. I didn't want to freak him out about what happened last night in the text and who I'd spoken to earlier on the phone. I'm going to work now. I'm not going back to the house. I'm going to the airport as soon as I can to meet Christopher, if it really is Christopher. I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm a physicist, a man of science, and none of this makes sense to me. I haven't been genuinely scared like this since I was a child. What's going on? Update. Final text from Chris. I'm at home, waiting for you. When will you be back? Update. I just got back from the lab. 2 of my colleagues want a chance to inspect the suitcase, but I'll hold out on that for now. They've done 2 cultures on what they were able to get from under my nails and from the palms of my hands. They doubt they'll be able to find anything because of how long it's been since I touched the suitcase, but they'll let me know as soon as they see anything. Update. Christopher messed up his arrival time. He just landed. Heading to the airport now. Told him not to leave without me. I think I'm gonna end it there for right now. So, that way I have something to come back to on the next episode. So, until then, thank you guys again for listening. Sorry this one was so short, but at least want to try to get something out. Just to get it out. But hopefully by next week I'll have the end of the story.